17-year-old Ethan Matthews, a quiet boy with a perfect smile and almost angelic demeanor. No one suspected him. No one saw the signs. But when his best friend, Alex Carter, was found murdered, brutally killed in his own home, Ethan Matthews had always been different, a bit too quiet, a bit too withdrawn. His family had no idea. They thought it was just teenage angst. Ethan was always the one in the back of the classroom, eyes on his desk, mind miles away. But no one ever questioned it. Who would? He was the kid who showed up to class early, never caused trouble, but never seemed to truly connect with anyone. He spent hours playing video games in his basement, but that wasn't unusual. Everyone had their escape, right? Then Alex Carter, his best friend, went missing. It was like the earth swallowed him whole. It all started on a Tuesday. Ethan had invited Alex to his house to play some games. They spent hours in the basement, laughing and talking like always. But by the time Ethan's parents came home, Alex was gone. Just gone. He said he was going to grab something from the store. Ethan explained when his parents asked, but Alex never came back. No one saw him leave, and no one knew where he was. Days went by. Alex's parents called the police. The search began. They checked every corner of town, every school, even spoke to Ethan's neighbors. But no one had seen anything. It was as if Alex vanished into thin air. For days later, Alex's body was discovered. It wasn't far from Ethan's house, just a few miles down the road, hidden in the woods behind an abandoned shed. His body was brutally beaten, shot in the chest, and covered with leaves as if someone had tried to hide it. The police arrived quickly, but it was already too late. Ethan had been questioned, but he swore he had nothing to do with it. "I don't know what happened," he said, tears running down his face. "I haven't seen Alex since he left my house." But there was something off. Ethan's story didn't add up. His hands shook when the officers asked him about the night Alex disappeared. He couldn't remember the exact time Alex left. He couldn't recall the details of their conversations. The investigators dug deeper. They searched Ethan's room. They combed through his computer, but there were no clues, just a few innocent conversations on social media. Yet, something felt wrong. The way he avoided their questions, the way he shifted his eyes, never looking them in the face. Then, one night, Ethan received a strange call. It was an anonymous tip. Someone said they knew what happened to Alex. They told Ethan, "You need to stop pretending you don't know. Your story doesn't make sense. You know exactly what happened." Ethan hung up, pale and shaking. He told no one about the call. But that night, he couldn't sleep. The guilt gnawed at him. His mind raced as he remembered the small details. His hands that night, they were covered in something sticky. The next morning, the police arrived at Ethan's house with something they hadn't seen before, a map with a marked location. It was the same place where Alex's body had been found. Ethan's face went white. And then they found something else. In the basement, a piece of fabric, a small, torn corner of Alex's shirt. Ethan's story was starting to fall apart. Detective Emily Harris was assigned to the case. She was sharp, methodical, and known for cracking even the toughest cases. When she looked at Ethan, she saw something. But what was it? A flicker of guilt? Or was it something darker? Ethan wasn't the same kid she'd seen in the interviews. He was colder now, more calculating. She watched him closely. The way his eyes darted, the way his voice trembled when he spoke about Alex. "Do you think he would have hurt you?" Emily asked during one of the interrogations. Ethan's response was chilling. "I didn't want to hurt him. I just needed to know if I could do it." The words hung in the air, suffocating. Ethan had confessed, but not in the way anyone expected. He wasn't just a friend mourning the loss of another. He wasn't broken by his best friend's death. He was excited. As Detective Harris dug into Ethan's past, she found things no one was prepared for. Ethan had been obsessed with true crime serial killers, unsolved murders, and death. His room was filled with books on the subject. He'd read about Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, and the Zodiac Killer. He had even started his own murder journal, where he wrote about his fantasies of taking someone's life. Ethan had been planning this for months. The idea of murder consumed him. He wanted to feel the rush, the control. Alex had been his target all along. But Ethan didn't just kill for pleasure, he did it for power. He wanted to know if he could take a life without regret, without fear. To him, it was like a test, a challenge. And when the time came, he passed. The moment of the murder was nothing like anyone imagined. Ethan didn't snap. He didn't lose control. It was calculated, cold, and intentional. Then, Detective Harris received another tip. This one was even more disturbing. The anonymous caller wasn't just someone who knew about the murder. They were someone who had been involved in it. Jason, Ethan's brother, had been in the basement that night. Jason had been watching. He'd seen everything. But Jason was not innocent. He wasn't just a witness. He was. Part of it, the twisted truth began to emerge. Jason had been encouraging Ethan for months. He was the one who pushed Ethan into it. He wanted to see how far Ethan could go. Jason had been the one feeding him ideas, making him feel like murder was a game one that Ethan had to win. Jason Matthews sat in the interrogation room, the cold fluorescent lights flickering above him. Detective Harris was sharp. She knew Jason was hiding something. He wasn't just a witness. He had been involved. He knew too much, and his answers didn't add up. The closer Harris got, the more Jason started to crack. But not in the way she expected or so. "Tell me again," Detective Harris said, her voice calm but unwavering. "What exactly happened that night in the basement?" Jason's eyes darted to the door, then back to Harris. He looked nervous, his leg bouncing up and down, his hand shaking as it clutched his sleeve. I was just watching," he muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. "Ethan, he told me everything. He wanted to do it. He needed to do it. I didn't think it was real." Jason's words felt rehearsed, like he was trying to convince himself that what happened was just a bad dream. But Detective Harris wasn't buying it. The pieces didn't fit. Jason hadn't been a mere observer. He'd been part of it. But why was he lying? Why keep pretending? Harris pushed harder. "Did you know Ethan planned this for months? Did you know he wrote it down? He even kept a journal." Jason's face turned pale. The blood drained from his cheeks, and for the first time, the mask slipped. He was scared. He was hiding something big. But before he could say anything, the door opened. Another officer entered, holding a file. The officer's eyes were wide. He looked at Jason, then at Harris. "We found something. A recording." "It's Ethan and Jason." The recording was grainy, the voices distorted. But the words were clear. "Jason, do you think I can do it?" Ethan's voice, small and unsure. "You've got to do it." Jason responded, his voice low and insistent. "You've been planning this. You know what you need to do. It's just killing a person. You'll feel better." The recording continued. It was Ethan, trying to talk himself through the murder. And Jason was there, not just as a spectator, but as the mastermind, feeding Ethan's darkest thoughts. "Just do it. Don't think about it." Jason's voice came through the speakers, chilling and cold. "You don't have to feel anything. You'll be in control. You'll have power." The recording was a game changer. It shattered Jason's story. He wasn't just a passive participant. He had been instrumental. He had been the one whispering in Ethan's ear, the one guiding him into the abyss. Jason wasn't just an observer. He was a manipulator, a mastermind in his own right. But this was just the tip of the iceberg. As Detective Harris dug deeper into Jason's life, she uncovered something more disturbing than she could have imagined. Jason's obsession with power, his obsession with control, his fascination with his brother's plan to kill Alex. It wasn't about protecting Ethan. It wasn't about family. It was about the game. It was about the thrill. And then, the twist. Jason's ex-girlfriend, Kayla, came forward. She had been with Jason for over a year before the murder, and she knew him better than anyone. What she revealed changed everything. "I knew something was off," she confessed, shaking her head as she recalled their last conversation. "He told me he wanted to watch someone die. He said he had this urge, this need, and he couldn't stop it." He said if I didn't help him, I'd never see him again. Kayla explained how Jason had tried to recruit her, tried to make her part of his plan. He wanted to feel the rush of power, to feel what it was like to take a life, and he wasn't going to stop until someone was dead. Kayla had refused, but her refusal only made Jason more desperate. He wanted control, and he would stop at nothing to get it. Jason's obsession with murder wasn't just a passing thought. It was an addiction, and it ran deep. He'd been watching Ethan for months, studying his every move, waiting for the perfect time to strike. Ethan, for his part, had been playing into it. He wanted to kill, yes, but only because Jason had made him believe it was the only way to prove his worth. It was Jason who convinced Ethan that killing Alex would make them stronger. He told Ethan that it would make him a man, that it would give him the control he craved. And Ethan, always looking for validation, always desperate for approval, followed his brother's lead. But why Alex? What had he done to deserve it? Detective Harris had the answer. Ethan and Alex had been friends, close friends, but Alex had started to pull away. He had begun to make new friends, and Ethan, feeling abandoned, had become jealous. Jason, ever the manipulator, had used that jealousy to his advantage. He told Ethan that Alex didn't care about him anymore, that Alex was just a distraction. He told Ethan that Alex had to be removed. Ethan had killed for acceptance. Jason had manipulated him into doing it. But there was something more to their story. Something dark, something twisted, that Detective Harris had yet to uncover. What was the real motive? Was it just power? Or was it something deeper? After all the lies, all the manipulation, and all the dark secrets, Detective Harris was closer than ever to uncovering the truth. Ethan and Jason Matthews weren't just brothers, they were partners in crime, each feeding the other's darkest desires. But as Harris began to peel back the layers of this twisted relationship, she realized something that made her blood run cold. The murder wasn't the beginning, it was just the start of something much, much darker. The moment Harris uncovered Ethan's journal, she knew she was dealing with something far more sinister. The words written in that journal weren't just ramblings of a teenage boy, they were a blueprint. A blueprint for murder, for control, for dominance. Ethan had been planning this for months, but what she found next changed everything. Sound of pages turning, eerie whispers in the background, among the scribbled notes and dark drawings. Harris found a name that didn't belong to anyone she had ever heard of. A name that would tie this entire case together. It was a name Ethan had written down over and over, a name he had fixated on, Lena. Who was Lena? And why did Ethan and Jason keep her name in their thoughts like a shadow that would never leave them? Harris knew she needed answers. But the deeper she dug, the more terrifying the truth became. Lena wasn't just a name. She was a symbol. A symbol of the control Jason and Ethan craved. A symbol of the twisted bond that tied them together in their sick game. As Harris questioned those who knew the brothers, a shocking truth emerged. Lena wasn't just any person, she was someone they both knew very well. Someone who had been a part of their lives in ways that no one could have imagined. Lena had been a part of the Matthews world for years, but not in the way anyone expected. She had been a part of their home, their family, in secret, the final piece of the puzzle. And when Lena disappeared, it was the spark that set the brothers on their dark path. The murder of Alex wasn't just about jealousy, it was a message. A message from Ethan and Jason to the world. A message that no one had understood until now. As Harris pieced together Lena's disappearance, she discovered a trail of violence, deception, and obsession that ran deep within the Matthews family. Jason had been controlling Ethan for years, manipulating him through their twisted bond. But it wasn't until Lena's sudden disappearance that Jason's influence took a deadly turn. Lena's disappearance wasn't an accident, it was a calculated move. Ethan and Jason had done everything in their power to erase her from their lives. But as Harris uncovered more, she realized that Lena wasn't just a victim. She had been part of the game all along. A game that only those who understood the true meaning of control could ever hope to win. Jason had known Lena from the start. They had a shared history, a shared obsession with power. But it wasn't just about power over others. It was about power over themselves. Jason had manipulated Ethan into believing that Lena had to be erased from their lives in order for them to truly be free. And when she was gone, when the brothers had successfully removed her from the equation, Ethan had felt liberated. But that freedom came at a cost that would haunt him forever. Ethan's first victim, Alex, was the key. Alex had been close to Lena, and when Ethan realized that, it became clear, if Alex couldn't be controlled, he would have to be destroyed. And so, Ethan and Jason plotted the murder. It wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision, it was part of their plan all along. They needed Alex gone, not just for revenge, but for control, for their twisted game to finally be completed. But here's where the story takes an even darker turn. Because while Harris thought she had found the final clue in Ethan's journal, the truth was far more disturbing. Ethan had been writing not just to himself, but to someone else. Someone who had been guiding him all along. Someone who had been pulling the strings, even more than Jason. A person Ethan never spoke about in his interviews. Someone who had been with him in the shadows. Someone who had been watching from the distance. And then Harris found it. A phone number. A phone number that had appeared in Ethan's journal, over and over again. The same phone number that had called Ethan just days before the murder. The same phone number that had been connected to the mysterious figure in the shadows. But when Harris called the number, she got the surprise of her life. The person who answered the phone wasn't a stranger. It was someone from Jason and Ethan's past. Someone who had been involved in the entire mess. Someone who had been quietly orchestrating the game from the very beginning. And their voice? Familiar, cold, calculating. Just like the brothers they had manipulated. This was no ordinary person. This was a force so dark, so terrifying, that it had influenced every step Ethan and Jason took. Now, the question is, who is this shadowy figure? And what role do they play in Ethan and Jason's twisted tale? This is the moment that could change everything. The truth about Lena, the truth about the murder, and the truth about the real mastermind behind it all, someone who had stayed hidden, lurking in the shadows. Until now, the real mastermind isn't who you think it is. Harris had been working tirelessly, following every lead, every thread, trying to piece together the chaos Ethan and Jason had created. The phone number she discovered in Ethan's journal. It led her straight to a chilling revelation. The person on the other end of that number. It was someone far too close to the brothers for it to be a coincidence. It wasn't a random figure, it was someone who had been with them the whole time. Someone who had manipulated them from the very beginning. As Harris dug deeper, she uncovered the name tied to that phone number. A name that chilled her to the core. Lena. Yes, Lena. The same Lena whose disappearance had sparked everything. The same Lena who had been erased from their lives. Or so they thought. But Lena wasn't just a victim. She was the key. She was the mastermind behind the scenes, pulling the strings. The twisted puppeteer that controlled Ethan and Jason without them even realizing it. And now, Lena was back, and she wasn't finished. But Lena wasn't alone. She had been hiding in plain sight, orchestrating everything from the shadows, and she had been using her manipulation tactics on Ethan and Jason for years. It wasn't just about power, it was about control. Control over their every move, their every thought. Lena had them exactly where she wanted them, and now it was time for the world to see the truth. Ethan and Jason were never the leaders of this dark pact, they were pawns. And Lena had used every ounce of her cunning to turn them into killers. She had been using them for her own gain, playing on their weaknesses, their fears. And when Lena disappeared, it was all part of the plan. She didn't vanish. She went underground. It was all part of the plan. She didn't vanish. She went underground, waiting for the right moment to strike again. And now, she was back. But this time, she had no intention of hiding. Lena wasn't some distant mastermind. She was right in front of Harris. In the interrogation room, waiting, the woman who had manipulated Ethan and Jason, the woman whose twisted mind had orchestrated everything, was now face to face with the detective. The truth was no longer hidden in the shadows. It was here, and Lena wasn't going down without a fight. "Do you know who I am?" Lena asked, her voice cold and calculated. Harris could only stare in disbelief as Lena's smile widened, her eyes gleaming with satisfaction. She had been in control this whole time. She had been waiting for this moment. But there was one thing Lena didn't know. Harris had uncovered the final piece of the puzzle. She knew everything now. The truth about Lena, the truth about the murders. Lena's confession was chilling. She admitted to everything: the manipulation, the lies, the murders. But it wasn't just about Ethan and Jason. It was about power. About taking back control over her life after years of being abused, controlled, and mistreated by those who should have cared for her. Lena had spent her entire life in the shadows, and now she was ready to step into the light, to show the world just how powerful she could be, and she would stop at nothing to maintain that power. As Harris listened to Lena's story, she realized that the murders were just the tip of the iceberg. Lena's manipulation had been calculated. She had targeted Ethan and Jason, knowing exactly how to break them, how to twist their minds to get what she wanted. And she had succeeded, but there was more. Lena had set them up for one final move, a move that would shock everyone. It was the twist that no one saw coming. In the final moments of Lena's confession, Harris learned the truth behind the twisted bond between the Matthews brothers. It wasn't just about murder. It was about the legacy Lena wanted to leave behind. A legacy of fear, of power. A legacy that would haunt the Matthews family forever. Lena's final words were chilling. "You think you know the story, detective, but you have no idea what's coming next." And with that, the truth came crashing down. But even now, Harris can't shake the feeling that there's something more. A dark secret buried deep within Lena's mind. Something even she hasn't revealed yet. Stay tuned for the shocking final reveal. The true mastermind of the murders is not who you think it is. And Lena, she's not the end of this twisted tale. She's only the beginning.